Hello everyone, welcome to Anthony's Career Advice. My name is Anthony and you guessed it, we're going to be talking about career advice. Today's topic is how to prioritize or tips on how to prioritize at work. Now prioritization is something that's glossed over and it's something that can sometimes be defined into vague or general terms. So today I want to introduce you to a concept or an idea on how to do it more effectively. Like everything, it's not perfect, but the goal here is to try and provide you with tips and strategies to try and improve in certain areas. So there's a few things that come to mind when we think about prioritization, right? We think that usually means that the task is important, right? Well, why else are we doing it? Why else would anybody ask us to do it if it wasn't important? And the next thing is that it's urgent, right? Everything is typically urgent, or at least that's what I'm finding, right? And those are two very, very true statements. But they're true to the person who's making the ask. So I am asking you to do something because it is important for me that this gets done. I would like this to be done as quickly as possible so that I get the peace of mind necessary, or that I relay the information to the person asking, if it is above me, that it's done. Right? So there's importance and urgency, and that's true. But if that's the case, then, well, isn't everything important and urgent? And if everything is important and urgent, how do you get started? Because you have to start somewhere, and we can't do everything at once. Right? As good of a multitasker as some of you may be, it still means doing one thing at a time. So how do you decide? Well, we look at something else, and something that I think is impactful when making that decision on how to prioritize, and it's significance. So in essence, it's how long will this work matter for? That's ultimately where you decide what gets done first and how much time to invest in that task. So if we think about it again, so we have importance and urgency. That's a given, that's not going anywhere. Significance is how you decide what you do. So for example, we can have a situation where you have 3 different things that's on the go, possibly reporting to 3 different people, or all the same person who has given you 3 things to do. You say, well, they're all due at close to or roughly the same amount of time. What is reasonable to do in that situation? Well, first and foremost is if you are able to decide and determine what's significant on your own, tackle that. Invest the most time in that task. On a day like that, if you have too many priorities and a strict deadline, those are days that we're typically conceding that the day is not going to be, or it's not going to go as well as we had hoped. We just kind of have to accept that. It's a tough pill to swallow, but it's something that we have to do. But if you're in the situation there where there's too many conflicting priorities, that's where you start speaking to leadership. That open communication is important. And you highlight saying, I have 3 priorities right now. All 3 are urgent, all 3 are important. My gauge is to try and determine where to invest the majority of my time or where it needs to be invested first, if you can't figure that out on your own or if it's a challenge to do so. That open communication helps with prioritization because it focuses on the significance, right? What can be parked, right? What may not be as urgent as it was presented as? That's something to pay attention to. So I'll repeat that again. Significance is ultimately the decision-making piece when it comes to prioritization, because it'll help you manage your time better. And when we think about or talk about managing your time, we then look at it from that angle, that perspective. We say, okay, so I have decided, or with the support of my leadership, I've decided what is significant and what I'm going to be working on. Then what? Then you dedicate a big bulk of that time to whatever that task is. Now that could be minutes or hours. And you say, this is what I'm dedicating my time to. I'm not going to deviate from it. I'm going to remove distractions. And that's what I focus on until I get to a point there where it's either completed or as close to completion as is reasonably possible and accepted by those who are asking, right? The other thing to think about with prioritization, and a lot of people suffer from this, is we go to work with the idea that we have to get everything done, right? We have a to-do list. It starts at, the first minute we start work, and then maybe 3 or 4 times throughout the course of the day, we reevaluate, we readjust, we cross that list off, we crumple it up, we throw it away, we create a new one, right? So what we really want to look at is saying, okay, so is the goal to get everything done? Is the goal to get the entire inbox completed or cleared? No, and it shouldn't be, for the most part, right? When we think about when tasks are assigned or provided, what typically happens, and really think about this may be affecting you too, is you'll notice that in the early afternoon or closer to late afternoon, nearing around whatever conventional end of workday is for where you work, emails start flooding in, right? Does that mean they all need to be actioned at that moment? No. That's pretty much someone on the other end saying, I don't want to deal with this until tomorrow. Therefore, I'm waiting till the end of the day to send my response because I don't want to have a back and forth today. That's what's usually happening. You can tell if this is happening, especially if you're attached to an email string or an email chain. You can kind of look at it and say, well, when does the request or this conversation start? Is there a pause between when it's being sent to me? Right? And if there's a big enough pause, just flag it and say, this doesn't have to be done by end of the day. This can be done or be a target of opportunity tomorrow, depending on what's on my priority list. So that's something I want you to keep in mind about. And chances are, if you're watching this, you may be someone who has done this. I'm guilty of this. I sometimes have done this and said at the end of the day, I feel like this is where I want to cap off my discussion. I'll send this at the end of my working day to allow that person to reflect or plan for the following day. So the intent isn't necessarily malicious. The intent is typically saying, I have completed what my list of things that I feel are appropriate to send off by the end of the day. Hopefully these tips help around prioritization. Like with everything that I'm going to share on YouTube, like, share, subscribe if you think that it has added value, and also comment below. Let me know your thoughts. If there are videos that you want me to talk about, then I'll try to make videos about those topics or provide any additional insights. Hope all is well, everyone, and do enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.